Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, you know, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, you know, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
When their fathers had prostate cancer, I had like a 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
This week in Black people shit, I'm so sick of tired of being tired. I'm your host, Chrystee Pharris. That phrase, I'm so sick of tired of being sick and tired, are the famous words of the civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer that she said at the 1964 Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey. In that speech, she described the brutal beating she took by the hands of police officers in a Mississippi jail that year. Her testimony, that beating left her with severe kidney damage, a blood clot behind her left eye, and a permanent limp she had endured until her death in 1977. Her testimony that day was aired live on national television for all the world to see as she described the hardship and continued oppression that Black people had to face in their efforts to obtain basic civil liberties. 56 years later, Black Americans are still fighting against police brutality, oppression, and systematic racism that reached a boiling point last week that incited a national rebellion. All right, here. I am here with actress Janora McDuffie.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you again. Welcome back.
Professor in sociology and founder of streetgangs.com, Alex Alonso. And
hello,
writer, and then writer Abdul Majid. All right. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
How's everybody doing today?
Oh, man.
So far, so good, all considered.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I see you on there. Love you too, Natasha.
Tell you how I'm doing today, just because it's been a busy morning, which meant I have not had a chance to watch the news. The state of my soul depends on how much content I consume on the TV. So today I'm okay, but I still cried. Every day for the past week, I have shed tears. So I am so ready for today's conversation. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
I'm doing great.
Going on? Yeah.
I just returned back from Minneapolis, so I'm happy to be back in Los Angeles.
Right, because you were out down there shooting footage.
I was out there. I was shooting footage and I was getting shot. Let me show you something real quick. I'm gonna show you what I was getting shot with.
He's serious. She was about to call out only the females talking about our feelings instead of just the men. So I am so glad Alex got up for some show and tell.
So what is that?
These are the rubber bullet casings that I was getting shot at with in Minneapolis. Now, this is crazy. Everyone told me when I went down there, be safe, right? Be safe. The only danger that I was in was when I was around police officers. So I got shot at with these, and I got, what's the chemical that they use
Tear gas.
Crowd? I got tear gassed on 2 different occasions. and I got shot at with these on the first night I was there. So this is just a souvenir that I brought back from Minneapolis.
Wow.
Dang.
Wow. Hey, Judy. Yeah, that's some serious stuff. I mean, this week was it was pretty interesting to just kind of see all these marches and the conflict that I had within my body of everything that was happening and wanting to support, but also like I was afraid that people were going to get hurt. I didn't want the police officers to get hurt. I didn't want the people out there marching to get hurt. It's a lot, but it also made me say, you know what, we need to make the change. And if we really think about it, when this happened, you know, back during the civil rights movement, part of the reason why it never finished was because they killed off all of our leaders that would have finished this to the end, so we wouldn't be here today. So it's a lot going on. How about you, Abdul?
I've been watching it. I've just been curious. I don't know. I felt like I've been in this place before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's whatever the offense is. After the offense, there is the subsequent. You know, whatever happens after that, and then after that, it just dies down, and nothing ever happens. No policies, no legislation, no anything. Just a lot of glad handing and talking to people about how this needs to stop, but it's unjust and what have you. So I'm sort of I'm in a wait and see process. I just want to see what happens next. I'm ready to participate in whatever the next part of it is, and if that's the voting that happens in November or what have you, I'm ready for the next aspect of this.
Well, one of the things I have to say that I was very pleased to see was to have all of these people marching around the world. You know, to see people in London and Paris. I had friends that sent me some footage from when she was in Amsterdam marching. And one of them had a sign that said, you know, I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired. So let me just show that to you. I thought that was such a beautiful moment to see all these people marching around the world.
And while you pull that up, just hello, Natasha, welcome back. Hello, Tangerine, welcome back.
Hey. Okay, here we go.
No audio.
Oh, there's no audio, huh? Well, thank you for telling me. Let me try that one more time. We are having.
And then while you're grabbing the audio, Natasha wanted to hear directly from Alex a little bit more about your direct experience on the front line, especially since you were in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was an incredible situation. I was embedded within the community around 38th and Chicago Avenue, where Brother Floyd lost his life, where George Floyd lost his life. That was like the Mecca. That was like the spot. Every day people came. Not even every day. People never left. 24 hours a day, there was always a crowd of people there. One night I stayed out there till 4 a.m. I was so tired, but I wanted to stay. People were sleeping in a circle in the center of the intersection. And in the next few days, I'm going to put all this content on my channel on Street TV so people could see all of this. But I was meeting all the people from Minneapolis and St. Paul. People, if you don't know your geography, it's actually two large cities right next to each other. And everyone relates to each other, whether you're in St. Paul or in Minneapolis. These two cities are literally adjacent to each other, which is very unique geographically. You don't usually get two large cities right next to each other. They're separated by the Mississippi River. So everyone that I was meeting there was either from St. Paul, who felt the same way as the people from Minneapolis felt. And what's really interesting is like the racial integration of this city, even though the police department is working within that same white supremacist framework, the day-to-day people that live in these communities, white and black, seem to love each other more than in any other city that I go to. When we do have protests here in Los Angeles, you don't see really a whole bunch of white people coming to support, whether we're in Leimert Park or we're on Crenshaw. Yeah, there'll be a couple of white people, but in terms of the way that they function in Minneapolis, the white community, for the most part, within the city, has the black community's back. Now, when you get on the outskirts, everyone tells me the white folks on the outskirts is different, but the white folks within Minneapolis, they got a lot of love for black people there.
That's good. You don't think there's a little bit of a difference just because of what was happening now, that so many people were coming out to support? Because LA had a lot of people out that were both white and black that were out there.
And everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this is a relationship they had prior to this. It's actually one of the most where people who claim that they're mixed, black, white mixed. Minneapolis has one of the highest proportions of mixed race kids in America. When you just walk around, all you see is black and white couples all over the place, holding hands. It sort of reminds me of like when you go to Seattle, there's a lot of black, white couples. If you've ever been to Vancouver, Canada, it's a lot of black, white couples. You don't really get a whole lot of that within the inner city of Los Angeles because there's just a small white population. To see that in LA, you got to go to Santa Monica, you got to go to the West Side, you got to go to the middle and upper middle class communities. But in the hood, in Minneapolis, you see all of this racial integration, and you see all these kids running around. They're all mixed race. So this is something that was going on way before the George Floyd situation.
Yeah, but I also heard that Minneapolis and St. Paul, because I know St. Paul was called the black section. I heard a professor tell us the history of how St. Paul was formed because they didn't want the black people in Minneapolis. And they were also saying that Minneapolis has some of the worst black to white disparities across the country. Like they're like one of the worst places in terms of racial disparities from black to white in the nation. So they can like you. What's that Paul Mooney line? Everybody want to be a nigga, but nobody want to be a nigga. So they like all the like the cultural stuff. They like the cultural stuff about you when it comes time to putting your dollars up and getting the same amount of education. I think I read something where it was like the black kids in Minnesota and St. Paul for education is like $13,000 per person or per child, while it's like $30,000 for the white kids or something to that effect. So I mean, what good is the diversity if it's not going to be economic? It's not going to be equitable across the board and all these other aspects.
Right. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me just play this video real quick. We'll get back to Jed in 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Let's just play this.
And this is This Week in Black Leadership.
And African presidents and African people all over the world, that it is time now that the whole world is behind black people, that African countries should come together and write a letter against America, because America is killing this.
My name is Lucy. Being a white person born and living in Kenya, seeing another black American being killed by a white police officer is unacceptable.
But they're marching for their own self. You know, there's a couple of people in a couple of other countries that have been killed too, black men. So let's see, question to the panel. The pictures of cops taking a knee, being interviewed for those moments, standing in solidarity with protesters, etc. Do you feel these snapshot moments are just moments for now, or are these moments taking on something much bigger and positive that you've experienced in the past? I felt we saw a diverse group of Democratic candidates to a point, yet here we are. What do you think, Abdul?
I think it's just for now. I think the thing that people tend to forget is that police interaction with the black community is sort of like the last domino. It happens when all these other mechanisms fail. So you got to go back to childbirth and the disparities that black women have of getting the right sort of treatment within the hospital and how they have a higher rate of dying. And then it goes to education, and then it goes to economics, and then it goes to housing, and then it goes to, once all these other mechanisms fail, then you hit the police because you're so fed up that you're either going to be stealing or on the street or whatever, all these other things fail you. That's when you wind up getting hit by interacting with the police. And then so all this, I don't believe any of it. I just think it's just for now. I think they're trying to bandage up part of the symptom, and they're not really getting to the root of what the real problem is. And there's all the systemic things that happen before you even interact with the police.
Well, I'm going to take the opposite opinion on that, Abdul, and that's only because my wife is a cop, right? And so I see the lens, I see through a different lens because it has forced me to see everyone as an individual, because I'm also so quick to be like, well, the police or well, white people, but wait, it constantly makes me check myself because that's what I live with on a daily basis. And so I do have, and I have had all week, or not just all week, but all through our relationship, these very uncomfortable conversations about the police and about relationship within the community. So I will agree that for some, maybe it is a photo op, or maybe it is, oh man, my police officer brother to the left took a knee, so let me just take a knee real quick. But I do think for some people on both sides, it has been true change and effect. And even if it's only one or two that have been changed by taking a knee or by finally listening with different ears what a protester says, that is the beginning of change. And maybe from the protester sense, maybe for them, wow, this police officer actually heard me or saw me or is marching with me. I'm moved by the sheriff in Flint, Michigan, although they still got dirty water. I'm moved by him marching with his people. Or so there can't be a one size fits all in any conversation, because that's similar to saying like, well, all Black people or all anybody. You got to start and look and connect to that place where the heart is. And you can't control everybody. And I think that's impossible to wish for, is like oh, well, this is going to change everybody. But if it changes just that one or two, then that makes a difference.
Well, before Alex gives his response, let me ask you a question, Janora.
Sure.
There's been a litany of bodies up to this point. And you're telling me this one incident is the linchpin that makes people go, oh, I get it now. Yeah, we've been beating the shit out of people for the last 50 years, and now it's different?
You know, that's a fair question, Abdul. I think the reason that this one is different is because there is not one police officer that I have spoken to, or my wife has alluded to, or that I have seen that has said that George Floyd's death was not a murder, or that they were not completely out of line. So because it is a unanimous, this shit was wrong, that was not in protocol and policy of what we learned even from the academy, there is no black and white. There is, you know, I get frustrated too that there's conversation about other names. Even Tamir Rice, that's just like, oh, but there's this gray area. I don't want to hear that. But for this particular instance, there is no gray. That was wrong. And police finally are breaking rank and saying this is wrong. I think that is a huge part of the change.
But how is this worse than Tamir Rice? He was a 13-year-old boy in the park playing with a gun, and they shot him in less than 3 seconds, rolling up on him in the open carry state.
Playing with a toy gun. That was a toy gun.
With a toy gun. With a toy gun. How is this worse than that?
Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to derail or deflect. I will share with you what I know, which is the gray area that exists. And I'm not saying I agree, but this, from a police officer's point of view, is what I know. So I'm only speaking from secondhand. So in a Tamir Rice situation, the toy gun was not an orange toy gun, a green toy gun. It was a toy gun that looked like a real gun. Meaning that
it was an open carry state.
Yes.
Don't forget that part.
Absolutely.
So even if it was a real gun, it's an open carry state.
Absolutely. And again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm on your side. I'm just sharing the gray area that exists within the police culture or policy, right? They roll up, they see somebody holding a gun, they shoot it. I mean, I can't, and kill a young black boy. And you're right. I agree with you. If it was a little white boy holding that same toy gun, would have been the same 12 seconds. Would he have been given out? All that becomes the gray. And I'm saying that you can have a police officer who's able to articulate from their policy why it still fits in a category where it was okay. I'm saying for George Floyd, there is no gray. There is not one police officer that is not saying, well, there are police officers that might not be saying it publicly, but based on protocol from, again, what I know secondhand. I'm only sharing secondhand, but it was completely out of line and completely out of order. And for that shit was wrong. So
Right.
I think from that point of view, that's what makes this one a little bit different. I'm not condoning any of the names that are on the long line of lists, but for this one, I think that becomes the change.
Mm-hmm. Alex, you have something that you want to say?
Well, I was just going to agree with Abdul regarding these photos and all these officers that seem to be in agreement with the people. It's just for show. I really believe that most local city governments want to prevent any sort of uprising in their city. It's an embarrassment to a mayor, it's an embarrassment to a city council, and it's an embarrassment to a governor when you have the people in the streets doing what they've been doing for the last week. So the only way to try to quell that is to come out and get on a knee, trying to come out and seem like you're for the people. I don't think there's this killing of George Floyd is any different from any other killing. And I don't think that don't expect any major change unless there's major changes within the culture of policing, which we're not even having that conversation. I do believe that there are a lot of cops that are going to side with Derek Chauvin. They're not going to publicly tell you, Janora, but I bet you there's hundreds, if not thousands of cops in the United States that are going to agree with what Derek did, but they're not going to publicly come out and say it. So you're making you have a viewpoint that's based on a group of people that we're not even hearing from. But don't believe there's a whole bunch of cops out here that agree with what Derek did and that they're supporting him. In fact, the police union in Minneapolis is trying to bail him out. I have a video that's coming out where they're trying to raise enough money to first get him bail and then to bail him out. So they didn't throw him under the bus just yet.
Well, I think the reason that I'm speaking so definitively. Oh, is that me echoing?
Yeah. Go ahead.
The reason that I'm speaking so definitively in a black and white, like right and wrong, is just based on policy. I'm not talking about people's attitudes and opinions. And yes, you got people who know it's wrong but still feel, well, he was acting up or whatever. I'm just talking based on policy. And the policy is stated when someone is under, is contained. And that is such the wrong word to use. And I apologize. Again, I'm not a cop, but that becomes, you set them up and whatever. I'm just basically talking about what's on protocol and what's on pieces of paper, not what's in anybody's heart. And it obviously we will agree to disagree. And for me, I'm just going to keep hope alive that change, even though it might not be the whole department, even 3 people, that's change. And I know now it's not even necessarily about the police officers. We're talking about the system. And going back to what you were talking about earlier, Abdul, about the discrepancy, the disproportionate economics or education between the black and white communities in Minneapolis. What I would love to see is that this movement that is happening isn't just about the 4 officers in jail. It isn't just about justice for George Floyd. It's about breaking the system. And with breaking the system, it's not just the police system. We are also hoping to just pull in breaking the economic disproportion. Or let's find housing, healthcare, like all of that is rooted within racism. Let's break that. And originally we were starting to talk about, Chrystee, the international component of this. Yes.
Right.
Let's come together. I think there is strength and that there is a possibility.
So I just feel like I have hope that some of these cops did it for the right reasons. But I do also have the cynical side of me that feels like they're doing it just to shut us up and get us moving. Just over the history and time, it's always like, let's just get them to shut up. Let's just get them to move. Let's give them just a little bit to keep their mouths shut, to make them feel good. And then we're still going to go back to our old stuff. But that doesn't, not everybody's that way. I know that not every cop is bad, not every, but we have to get to a place where if we don't shut this down, this place is going to be in an uproar. And one thing that Fanny talked about, she said, when you continue to keep trying to take things away from us and trying to kill us in so many ways, at some point in time, we are going to rebel, and things don't change. The part of the reason why I think the looting could possibly be important, even though I don't know if I really believe that important, but they say that things don't change until their money and economics goes in a different way. So the looting, taking all their stuff. So when they were talking about the civil rights movement, when they started looting and all that kind of stuff, that's when they signed the Civil Rights Act 6 days later. So let's get to some of these questions real quick before we go on to our next one.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Stephanie Campbell.
So my parents, who are immigrants from Belize, are not used to this type of protests. So they do not see change will come in these efforts. Long-term change. So what is really next? And that's a really good question. What is really next?
What's next is that we got to dismantle the thin blue line. I don't know if everyone understands what the thin blue line is, but officers don't tell on other officers. You know, we always criticize the no snitch philosophy when it comes to the streets, but the police have the same no snitch policy, which is really the issue here, because those other three, let's say this wasn't on camera. Those other 3 officers, or let's just say the Asian officer, Tao, who didn't physically participate, what's the likelihood that he would go to his boss or his superiors and say those 3 officers used excessive force? It's not likely to happen ever, because Tao or whatever officer is there is going to be completely ostracized from other officers that he works with. So right. this officer has no choice but to just either turn a blind eye or to participate. Right. And that's the thin blue line that no one wants to really say. We have to dismantle that thin blue line, and we have to have an incentive for officers to say, look, that's a bad apple. We got to get rid of them. And there's no department in this country that even incentivizes officers to do what Serpico did. There's an old movie from the 70s that took place in New York. Serpico. This dude, Serpico, was trying to expose every single bad apple within the NYPD, and guess what they tried to do to him? They tried to murder Serpico. So the thin blue line is one of a few things that we got to address when it comes to changing the culture of policing in the United States.
Let me jump to this next one. I want to show you this video real quick and get your thoughts on it here.
This the setup. They put them there on purpose. Y'all know where we at. They gonna set them right. Bitch, don't give no group of black men no credit that don't do nothing. I ain't pushing them up.
Let me tell you this. This is not a black woman who's putting Black Lives Matter.
So, what are your thoughts about? Go ahead about this. As we're starting to learn that a lot of these, the vandalism that is happening is coming from white people and could be white supremacists.
I think historically, this is something that they've always done. They've been always agent provocateurs. There's always been, you know, government trying to do things to subvert underground movements. You know, they shot Fred Hampton. They pushed drugs in the black community. They had counter intel programs. They have FBI. They put people into the Nation of Islam. They put people into SNCC. They put people into. This has been a historically proven thing that this is what they do. This is what the governments do. This is their form of control. And the good thing now is that more people have video cameras so they can out these people and show that it's not the participants in these protests that are doing it. And it's some subversive stuff that the government and government officials and police or whomever, because they said the same thing during Ferguson. I don't know if Alex was at Ferguson, but there were these 2 cops, one black and one white, who were on camera trying to pretend that they were part of the protesters and sort of put violence, do all violence, all sort of stuff. So, you know, it's par for the course nowadays, or historically it's been par for the course.
Mike said they dress in black to make it seem like it's us. Yeah,
I actually saw this going on in Minneapolis. Like, with my own eyes. I would say the white folks was doing all the damage, doing all the destruction. Look, they burnt down a police station in Minneapolis. You know how difficult it is to burn down? First of all, to burn down a structure that is as strong as a police station requires a professional approach. You think these dudes off the corner of 38th and Chicago that live on the south side of Minneapolis know how to burn down a police precinct? I don't think so.
Yeah.
How many police precincts got burned? So that was a lot of the rumors that was going on in the streets of Minneapolis, is that there's a lot of white agitators, both radical left and right wing white nationalists. It's hard to really like track it to figure out who did what. But there's the anarchists, which are the white dudes on the left, and then you got the nationalist, racist white dudes on the right, because they both have a reason to try to hijack. What they're doing is they're hijacking black anger and using it for their own personal agenda, whether it's anarchists on the left or if it's the white nationalists on the right that want to make black people look bad. You know, they're hijacking genuine anger and turning it into something else. And what's really frustrating, when I would go to my hotel and flip the channels, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, they just completely don't get what's going on the streets at all, man. It's actually just frustrating to watch mainstream and corporate media tell these stories about black people looting and black people doing this. I'm like, what? I'm out here watching this firsthand. So it's just frustrating to see how the narrative, how corporate media controls the narrative that's like 80% incorrect.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into our next conversation about how the media does portray or does not portray the true facts of what's going on the streets and what this is really about. And anything from the white woman who was looting, who they said must have been an employee, and then all the black looters. And then I think you've got a tape of Kevin Hart and his comments on it.
I do. Let me just share real quick.
As you bring that up, I was just going to share my. Oh, he's talking. All right.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
You guys control the narrative. So I feel like you guys have a job to do about pushing the correct narrative. And right now, I'm watching that narrative slowly change into the rioting, into the looting. But we're not talking about the reason.
As Jonathan Hunt has noted from Los Angeles, things are heating up in Los Angeles right now, and night hasn't fallen yet. That's when the cockroaches tend to come out, and these protesters, if that's what you want to call them,
it is incredible to see in a unfortunate way. I can only hope that this person isn't stealing and that maybe they are an employee. But based on what I have seen tonight,
Yeah. So, yeah, it's something serious of how they're controlling the media and what they're showing and what we are seeing. I got so sick of watching the TV, the news, because all they kept doing was showing the same clip of them looting this one particular store over and over and over. So it made me want to just jump on social media and see what was going on social media instead of paying attention to what was on the news.
You know, part of that is like our fault as viewers, because it's like the car chase that they show on the news all the time. Car chases get incredible ratings for the news. You got to understand, news is a business. They're not doing social activism. They're not out there advocating for our rights. It's a business. So they have to show the most extreme and most salacious stuff that they can find. And it's the same reason why we like to watch car chases. Not me in particular, but in general, when there's a car chase on the news, we watch it. And that's the same thing. So when there's uprisings like this, they're going to find the most, salacious things to show. And they're not going to show the things that I'm going to be showing the next few days on my channel about how all the brothers in Minneapolis was protesting peacefully, how they were doing sit-ins, how they were doing silent protesting, because that doesn't that doesn't bring in the ratings. Just like I know when I post these videos, they're not going to get hundreds of thousands of views. They're going to get a few views, but nevertheless, I'm still going to put it out there. So part of that is a human condition. The media knows we're going to watch it, so let's show that. Let's keep looping those people running into that building or that fire. So we're getting into the business of news and media, and that's what their job is to make money off the news.
So what's really interesting is what was said by the person. I hate even talking about him, but by the orange guy, that guy. When the looting starts, the shooting starts, the same applies to the media on TV. I live in Long Beach. Right outside my window, it was a beautiful show of hundreds and hundreds of people protesting peacefully. But you didn't see that. They didn't start shooting in Long Beach TV camera-wise until they started looting. So I think there is an agenda behind all of it. I do think that some of the outlets have gotten nudged to show more positivity, but I feel like there are still certain channels that purposely continue the narrative that it's all these cockroaches coming out. What is that? So
I also think at some point in time, once we get through this portion, we need to start boycotting some of these news stations because of the narrative that they're portraying about us.
The only reason I would disagree with that is because we need to know what they're saying about us. For example, I switched the channel, CNN, MSNBC, and when I can stomach it, I do Fox News, but I do it not to support them. But I need to know what the other side is saying about me.
I agree with you, but at some point in time, we need to hit them in their pockets. If they're not getting the ratings, and we're gonna explain to them why they're not getting the ratings, they're gonna start to change the narrative.
Well, people need to support independent media. We need to support independent media. We need to support small media outlets that actually do the work, that do the groundwork. And we need to just be cognizant that there's all these other smaller media outlets that aren't run by corporations, that are on YouTube, they have their own websites, that they have their own platforms, and watch their content.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think we keep forgetting that the media is just the propaganda arm of the state. They've been doing it for years. They did it in other countries. Like during World War II, Heinrich Himmler, I believe, was the one controlling the narrative, the media, putting out movies, making cops look heroic. I mean, making the Nazi army look heroic. Then we do it in this country where we have movies that are constantly showing the army as the heroes, even though they're invading other countries and destroying lives. And it's like, so it's propaganda. They do it all the time. I agree 100% with Alex that we need to support independent journalists. We need to, all of the people who are on YouTube. And I think I learned more from social media during this stuff than I did the news media, because they all have one clip that, like Chrystee said, they show over and over and over again, and then it gets inundated. The problem isn't, I think, sometimes with this group, someone like myself or someone like Alex. I consider myself a conspiracy theorist. There's things I don't believe. There's things I do believe. I know Alex himself is a activist journalist. He goes out there, so he sees what's on the ground. I don't think it's this group of people who are falling into the trap. I think it's the outside people, your white friends who just believe everything that they see. They believe every lyric in a rap song. They believe Jay-Z was the biggest drug dealer in the world. Like, they believe everything that they hear that comes from the TV or the radio, and it's hard to convince them otherwise. I think those are the people who really need to understand what's going on, not us, because we see it.
Yes, and addition to that, just acknowledging that there's also some shady shit online, and some things that only preach certain type of propaganda. So maybe as a proactive step, Alex and Abdul, you can share with Chrystee some of the outlets that are trusted, true outlets. And Chrystee, you could post it at the end of this video.
No, I would love to, just so that we can start doing it. I just think that we have to start making a change. I think people are believing too much. And don't get me wrong, social media doesn't always put out some of the things that are truthful as well. We know that. But I have to say, like, there was that white guy that went on the news and said, "Oh, I was beat up by two black men because I said all lives matter when somebody else had footage and they showed it, which was him shooting a bow and arrow at people, and the people that jumped him were now white. I'm sorry, were white. They were all white.
Crazy.
Just to answer Natasha's question, some independent places you can go. You could go to the Young Turks. You can go to NPR. I know Yvette Carnell has a really great show called Breaking Brown on YouTube, where she talks about politics and things like that. There's a brother out of California named Antonio Moore who has a show called Tone Talk. He does some really good stuff. Zoe Williams from the Zoe What Show. He does some really good, interesting stuff. So that's a few outlets right there that you can look at. And then don't look for my resources. Do some research. You could go find it yourself. Like part of the problem is that we're waiting for other people to tell us who to look and where to look. So just take the time yourself and do a little bit of research. It's like if it's good enough to figure out what's the best restaurant to go through from a Zagat site, or if you're looking online for how to get to the closest whatever, you can do a little bit of research to find some independent sources yourself.
Right.
Let me throw in, I like watching Roland Martin. He does a YouTube show every day. It's about 2 or 3 hours long. He has incredible guests, experts every time. And he covers things from a Black perspective, for people of color perspective, that I haven't seen. And, he used to work for corporate media. He used to be on CNN. He used to be on TV One. So now he's doing his own thing. And there is no censoring when you're able to do your own thing as well. And let me just say this. There might be a couple videos of me coming out soon when I was in Minneapolis, because I was very critical of some of the media that was there. And I didn't hold my tongue to tell them how I felt. And a couple of journalists from some of the corporate media outlets were trying to tell people, hey, can you take that sign down? We're about to go live. And it would be a sign of saying, like, F the police. They would hold up a sign. So I actually told one of them, I said, how can you tell these people here from Minneapolis to not hold a sign up? You're an outsider here. And before I knew it, I had like 30 people behind me saying, yeah, and I didn't mean to do this, but a couple of the media folks that I had ridiculed actually packed up and left because they felt a little intimidated by all the people that were rallying behind me. But I'm really frustrated with mainstream media, with corporate media coming to a place like 38th and Chicago Ave in the Black community in Minneapolis, telling people what to do. Hey, can you move out the way? Hey, can you not hold up that sign? And I'm like, you shouldn't tell any of these people what to do. This is their right to freedom of expression. If they want to hold up that sign, then you change that camera angle, or you wait till they move out the way, but don't tell these people what to do. So I don't know if anyone's going to post any of these videos of me going off on the media when I was down there, though.
Right.
Before I forget, I don't want to forget Mark Lamont Hill at the Griot, and I don't want to forget Angela Rye and The Root. They do some interesting work every once in a while. So,
nice.
So those are some other outlets.
And just to shout out a couple comments on top of that from Kevin and Tim, speaking of varying your news source, especially when Tim says, just to ensure you don't remain in an echo chamber. So that's important too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's been the media portion of things. Also, I found out that the FBI, I had a friend of mine who was taking pictures and stuff like that while he was out there with the riots and stuff like here. I want to say here in LA, but the FBI came knocking on his door at 6 o'clock in the morning to get the footage and took it away from him for 24 hours so that they can start getting all the surveillance and all of the footage and pictures of all the people that were looting so that they can go after them. So all y'all out there, y'all better be careful because they are watching and they will come after you.
Yeah, they do that so they can balance out the rage from the rage against the police, and now they can balance it out with now the rage against the people. They did that in '92 here in Los Angeles. They arrested those 4 cops for beating Rodney King, but then within a few days they arrested 4 black dudes for beating up Reginald Denny. So they kind of balanced it out. They balanced out the rage so it doesn't seem so intense on one side.
Yeah. So just to switch subjects a little, there's a quote from a banker, 18th century banker named Baron Rothschild, and he talks about stocks. He said that the time to buy is when there's blood on the streets. And it is a recent report by CNBC that showed that between March 18th, 2002 and May 19th, 2020, excuse me, American 600 billionaires have gotten $434 billion richer during the pandemic. You got a video, Chrystee?
I do.
America's billionaires saw their fortunes soar by $434 billion during the U.S. lockdown between mid-March and mid-May, according to a new report. Amazon's Jeff Bezos and Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg had the biggest gains, with Bezos adding $34.6 billion to his wealth and Zuckerberg adding $25 billion, according to the report from Americans for Tax Fairness and the Institute for Policy Studies Program for Inequality. The report is based on Forbes data for America's more than 600 billionaires between March 18th, when most states were in lockdown, and May 19th.
So my question is, do you think there's been exploitation occurring during these rebellions, and do you think there will be some after? And if so, how?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I do believe that a lot of people make money during these times. People were making money during the coronavirus. If I'm a stock person, so I follow the stocks very closely. You look at the stock markets that crashed during coronavirus after February 20th, all the major stocks took a dive. So what do investors like to do? They like to buy low. So some might call that exploitation, but that's part of living in this capitalistic system. If a share is going for $100 and then on February 20th, when the coronavirus hit hard, that $100 share dropped down to $50. If you're an investor, you're going to dump a whole lot of money on that share and watch that share grow. All of these shares, the market always bounces back. So that's one thing. But then Bezos, Amazon, this is where these guys are really exploiting this situation, because our governments were telling us what was essential and what was not essential during coronavirus. So if you were considered not essential, all of that business got driven to where? It got driven to the internet. It got driven to Amazon. It got driven to Walmart, and it just destroyed mom and pops. Mm-hmm. So who benefited from that? Bezos. From that video you just showed. That's how Bezos made all this money, is because all the non-essential got diverted to Bezos, Walmart, and all those billionaires.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling people that all our work is essential during coronavirus. I didn't care what type of work you did. If you was making money and you was feeding your family, that's essential. Yeah. We shouldn't let the mayor tell us what's essential. We shouldn't let the governor tell us what's essential.
And there was that story that came out before the protest started happening about that woman, the senator or congresswoman, who found out all that information during a closed meeting, and then she sold all her stocks off to this online company.
Right here in California.
Yeah, right here in California, right there in California. Yeah. So I mean, it's not a misnomer that people are actually doing it.
Yeah, and in terms of where we are now with the protests, we're still in a semi-state of quarantine with the curfews.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave my house yesterday at the first day after the Long Beach protest. Our curfew was 1 p.m.
Wow, you had to be in by 1 p.m.
If you lived in the downtown area, yes. And then last night I needed some time away from the television. I was going to take a walk. I couldn't leave my house after 6 p.m. So it's still a semi way to quarantine and focus where we spend our time, attention, and our money.
I don't recognize any of those times, curfews. I don't recognize any of that. And I think the more of us that don't recognize it, then the more they're going to realize that it's ridiculous. Like when they tell us to close our, like I'm in a black area of Los Angeles right now, and all my black businesses that I usually go to, they closed. But one of these brothers said, you know what, I'm going to stay open. And he stayed open, but then eventually somebody told on him and they came and closed them. But now it seems like, where did coronavirus go? Because I was in Minneapolis in groups of 100, 200, 300, and no one seemed to be concerned about this virus that apparently was being transmitted so easily between the people. But all of a sudden, what happened to all the coronavirus news ever since the George Floyd situation? So now I'm scratching my head, asking myself, how severe was the transmittal of coronavirus if all of a sudden from this George Floyd situation that truly displaced all the coronavirus news, how severe was it? So I tell everyone, open up your business. Your work is essential. If that's what's paying your bills, then continue doing what you're doing, and let the chips fall where they may. I haven't stopped working one single day during this whole coronavirus, and now into the George Floyd protests. And we should not recognize these curfews. Like who gives the mayor or the governor this authority to recognize the curfews? All the curfews did when I was in Minneapolis, it allowed the police to arrest peaceful protesters. Is that fair? We're arresting peaceful protesters because of a curfew. That's why I never went in. I stayed out the whole time, and I almost got arrested. I was able to wiggle myself out of an arrest, but unfortunately, 100 other people couldn't wiggle themselves out of it. Yeah. And that's what these curfews are designed to do, is to arrest peaceful protesters. Go out there, do your thing, stay out there. I'm out there. I'm supporting all y'all.
There was a guy named Raul in Washington, D.C., and there were a bunch of kids, about 70 kids, that got stuck on his street. The police came. It was around the curfew time, and what they ended up doing was they pinned them in so that the kids couldn't get out, and then they started pepper spraying and doing all kind of stuff. And this guy ended up letting dozens of black kids in his house so that they wouldn't get arrested, wouldn't get beat up. He was going to be my black person of the my BPS of the week, but I just thought it was so beautiful because he said none of them knew each other. They were in his house, and it brought them together because they had a chance to talk. And the fact that he pretty much probably saved their life or kept them from getting arrested was amazing. And he let all of these kids stay in his house until the next morning.
I saw that. That was incredible.
It was.
And can I say, I know this might not be the right wording for this, but I don't give a shit if the black people are looting. I don't. Take it. I don't care. I think that they didn't care when Wall Street was looting the shit out of us. They didn't care when they demolished the housing market. They didn't care about the looting that was happened when they're taking people's homes and communities and what eminent domaining people out of their homes. Like they didn't care. They have their way of looting, and it's okay because a corporation does it or a government does it. But if you take a pair of sneakers or a pair of Jordans just to make yourself feel better, or for whatever the reason is, that's exploitation. That people would consider that part to be exploitation. It's like peanuts. It's like compared to what they've been doing. They didn't care about what they were doing in Africa, taking oils, what the Chinese are doing in the Congo, all over this planet, stealing oil from Libya. Like they didn't care. That they don't. If you're not going to consider that exploitation, if you're not going to consider that looting, they'll say shit about the looters taking TVs and jeans.
Tangerine just said they looted this entire country from the Native Americans.
That is absolutely true. I can completely concur. Yeah, they looted this entire country. I teach a class on how America was formed from 13 colonies to 50, and along the way, everything was looted, everything was stolen. In fact, there was a line that the United States agreed to after they expanded the 13 colonies, called the Line of Proclamation, that they had with the natives, and they promised not to pass this line. And since then, that's how they kept passing the line, kept moving the line, and that was just a complete raping of this land. From the 13 colonies was a raping of the land. Just setting up 13 colonies, which was the United States, but to take it to 50 states, it's just incredible that we don't talk about it like in that context.
They did a deal with the Native Americans for goods and services, and they gave them blankets with smallpox, and then took the land right after that. After all the people died from smallpox, they took the land from them. If that's not looting, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Tim said the looting, that was pretty good. It's just noise. It's a symptom of the problem. We need to keep our eyes on the problem, fix that.
The problem is police oppression. That's the problem, and that's what our conversation should be. police oppression, police brutality, the murdering of unarmed black folks. That's the problem, and that's where the conversation should go. These guys on CNN and MSNBC and all these channels, they just want to deflect from what the real problem is. They want to talk about the looters. We can't allow them to control what the issue is. The issue is police brutality, and I don't, like Abdul said, I don't care about these looters. I don't care if they're stealing stuff at the store. That is a byproduct of police brutality.
Now, Alan,
and systematic oppression. We can't escape the systematic oppression of everything else that they're doing. The looting, I mean, the police brutality is one part, but we got to open the scope and say it's not just that. It's the money, it's the resources, it's the water, it's the medication, it's the food that they give us. It's the whole scope. It's not just the beating our ass is just the cherry on top.
You know what? There's a video that I would like to play that Fanny actually talked about. I don't know if you guys have seen it. If you actually saw it, some people were playing it, but I think it's important for people to understand even more so. So let me just pull this up real quick. And let me share the screen. Here it is right here. Check this out. It's basically saying what we're talking about right here. Okay. Oops, it's on silent.
It's in a more settled way.
Hold on,
let you starve.
Let me just fast forward.
If the church is bombed and burned. You see, and this leads me to say, all of the burning and bombing that was done to us and the houses, nobody never said too much about that, and nothing was done. But let something be burned, by a black man, and then, my God, you see, the flag is drenched with our blood. Because you see, so many of our ancestors was killed because we have never accepted slavery. We had to live on it, but we've never wanted it. So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance to be young men, respected as a man. As we know, this country was built on the black back of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either.
There you go.
There you go.
Tear it up.
We gonna tear it up. We gonna tear it up.
I don't think it's a coincidence either of the anniversary of the Tulsa massacre this past week as well.
99 years ago. 99 years ago.
Yeah, that was Fanny, y'all. Absolutely incredible woman. Do you guys have? Does anybody want to jump on the line? I put the invite right here for you guys to come in and chat with us if you'd like to come in. If you got something that you want to say, there is the chat before we close this up with our Black People of the Week. So there you go. Mm-hmm.
While the brave souls are preparing to jump in the conversation, maybe I'll just ask Abdul and Alex in the meantime, in terms of the looting conversation, does it make a difference if it's a mom and pop or if it's our community that's looted in terms of?
Yes. To me it does. I know this might be splitting hairs to some people, but to me it does. A mom and pop store. Because I saw a footage of a black couple in California trying to protect their mom and pop stores, and they called the cops. The cops came and arrested them. So, but yeah, I do think my problem mostly is with the corporations, because the corporation has been bleeding the black community for years, and like to go back to my thing of what happened in the Congo about the Chinese people looting all the timber from the Congo. The other part that they did is that they made a deal with the Congolese government to be able to sell their products in the African market, and they sold it at such a lower price that it undercut the local market, so the local people weren't able to sell their products, and a lot of those people went out of business. In this country, a lot of these corporations do the same thing. They come in communities, they sell a product at a lower price, and it undercuts all the mom and pop stores, and it runs them out of business. So to me, yes, the mom and pop business, please don't loot the mom and pop business. Those are necessities in your neighborhood. Those circulate the dollars, the black dollars that you need to come around. That's for the companies, that's for the corporations, Apple, and whatever, all the shit that they're doing. Fuck them.
Well, there you go.
My response to that is, yeah, I would hate to see mom and pops suffer through a rebellion, through an uprising, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Mom and pops businesses are going to burn down too. And I did this incredible interview with a black business that was across the street from the Cup Foods where George Floyd was murdered. And she told me that she was willing for her business to get burned and destroyed if it was going to contribute or lead to something better down the line. And I felt I felt such an emotion with this woman, this black woman business owner. I was like, wow, like you willing to sacrifice your mom and pops for the cause. And yeah, unfortunately, mom and pops are going to go down too for the cause. And if they don't want to listen, burn it down.
Yeah, and I saw another article. There were so many stories that were out there, but I saw an article about an Indian family who owned a restaurant, and he was trying to save in the beginning, and then at some point in time, he just said, "I'm just going to let it go." And his daughter wrote on her Instagram, she said, "I'm looking at my father watching his place burn down." And he said to her, "Let it burn down if it's going to bring a change, because this oppression that they have on people here in America needs to change." And I just thought it was so beautiful for him to say that and to allow it to happen. Mm-hmm.
I got a quick question. Nat Turner led a slave rebellion, a slave revolt, killed about 50 whites. Was he wrong? Was he wrong?
I mean, in my opinion, no, I don't think he was wrong.
Yeah, there's no amount of like reparations for taking the freedom away from a human being and then making them become your labor. Over time, that is going to affect people. And obviously, Nat Turner just had it. He said, this is just wrong. And he felt that he had to do what he had to do. And, I believe that the rebellions like Nat Turner's eventually led to the emancipation in 1865. If you didn't have, now Nat Turner was the largest rebellion. There were other smaller rebellions, but Nat Turner's was the rebellion of all rebellions. Men, women, and children. You never want to hear of kids dying. You never want to hear about young people getting killed. But in the name of trying to get out of slavery, at that point, I think anything goes. And it just goes back to the point of mom and pops businesses. Moms and pops businesses are going to suffer during this, just like when Nat Turner led his rebellion. Everyone that is in his path is going to pay the price.
Right.
So I just asked that question. How do people feel about what Nat Turner did to eventually lead to the emancipation?
That's a powerful question, Alex. And so you talk about Nat Turner, we think about slavery, and we're just like, yeah, fight the power. I get that. But now, again, I'm coming with a whole new different set of perspective. If you're just like, yeah, let's fuck up 10, let's kill 50 cops just because, that's only a fraction of the black people that they've killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife. Now it's a human person element to that. And I cannot say that's okay. I feel like there's got to be, and maybe this goes back to Kevin, I think it was Kevin who said something earlier about, no, it was James. James said, not talking about the problem, talking about the solution. Like, I don't know what the solution is, but I know that now that all of this has a human face to me, and even when Long Beach was looted, I was like, oh, hell no, that's across the street from me. It instead of like, yeah, burn that shit down, it became like, no, I know that person who owns that. So when we put a human element and a human face and experience to something, it becomes different. It becomes close to you in a way where you have a different perspective. Now, granted, that's not me saying that or not recognizing that the system is backwards and fucked and has fucked. Oh, goodness. Black people shit, I guess is the name of the show. So I can use profanity. So, that's not to acknowledge the atrocities that have happened and that are in the system to keep our people down.
So what's your position on Nat Turner then, Janora?
I mean, I'm saying that's a great question, because at first answering that question is yes, I get it. Yes, Nat Turner, yes. But if I put it in a context of 2020 under protesting for George Floyd, and you're saying you're going to, just as an example, kill police, it becomes human, it becomes close, it becomes personal. So saying yes isn't as easy. So I would love to incorporate some type of humanity, and I feel like it's happening in some way, again, enough to eradicate the system of oppression of Black people for hundreds of years. Probably not, but enough to move the story forward. And again, the things that bring me hope are the different colors, different generations that are out there, that are, whether it's for fake or whether it's the 2 or 3 that's real, the police that are kneeling and marching with. I'm just the type of person that's just going to keep hope alive and work do something. Because it's one thing, again, to talk about the problem. It's one thing, again, to see like, well, this is what they need to do and this is what they need to do. But I think it's something else to figure out, what is your place? What are you going to do? So I feel like that's what I'm leaving with and leading with this whole conversation. So Alex, I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you kind of circled it, but what about you, Abdul? What's your position on Nat Turner?
I'm sort of split down the middle. I know Nat Turner wasn't killing Black people, and if there was maybe a few and far between. So if he was there, if it was just across the board murdering whatever opposition he had, I don't know how comfortable I feel about it. But the way he went about it, when this mostly the oppressive white people that he was going, even the ones who may not have participated directly but benefited from it, who he also killed as well. I didn't have too much of a problem with it. My thing for Janora is for Black people, specifically with the police, why do we always have to show humanity and compassion first before they show humanity and compassion? Like the police it says on the side of their car to protect and serve. They swore an oath to protect the community, but then I am the one designated to show compassion first before you show me compassion. That's my only issue with it. I agree with damn near everything you were saying, that it should be individualized. It should be about the people in the community and across the board. But my problem is that it seems to me, the only reason that they have any compassion is because we're about to burn this shit down.
Exactly.
And they're like, no, not because everybody was cool when the riots in Los Angeles were in the 92 were hitting Crenshaw and Slauson, we're hitting Watts and have you. But now they're hitting Melrose, they're hitting Santa Monica, they're hitting, and then now everybody's like, oh, hold up now. They hit the Gucci store, they hit a Rolex store. That's like, now it's their property. It's like, no, we need to love one another. Like, where was all this love why couldn't you show it first? And that's my only issue with it. But I agree with like 75-80% of everything you just said.
Hey, for 75%, I'm good with that, Abdul.
My thing is that I don't want to see anybody killed, but I'm also getting to a place where I don't know where we're supposed to go. How are we going to make change if we don't do something? Because they're obviously not listening. So I saw a man that got killed. He actually was a black man who was, I think, a chief of police or something, but he got killed because they started looting a pawn shop. And I felt really bad that this, there was another cop that got killed. I don't want to see anybody die. I don't want to see cops die. I just want to see that we as people, no matter who we are, white, black, or whatever, I just want us to see, I want to be treated equally. I'm sick and tired of going to auditions and, I still have scars from back in the day when they were like, oh, we're not going to go black. They're not going black. Then why even call me in the room? Like, this stuff goes across the board in so many different ways that I'm tired. And again, I'm not saying I'm trying to kill anybody or whatever the case may be, but we got to find change. And if this is the way that we're going to make a change, then, you know, this is how we're going to make a change.
We'll all agree.
And we're gonna wrap up pretty soon, everybody, because I know our time is, we're going a little over. But go ahead.
I just want to say lastly that I think we all agree that the state uses violence in 2020 against the people all the time, whether it's the state of California, the state of Minnesota, and they're using violence right now to try to control peaceful protests. And the only answer to violence is what?
Love. It's love.
It's never worked. It's never worked, Janora. You have to meet violence with violence.
An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. I don't, you know.
But a shotgun in your ass will back you up.
We live in this imperfect world and it's the imperfect society. And I think that's what just comes with it. Just look at it historically. When this country was founded against the British crown, what did they do to get their independence from the British? They used violence. The only way for the white Americans to get their freedom from Britain was to use violence. Yeah. And that's the only way we're going to get freedom at some point. There's going to be a level of violence depending on the level of violence the state uses against us.
Mm-hmm.
I think violence is only necessary when you exhausted all other options. And if you can't accept a man kneeling at a football game, then what comes next? And if you won't take the peaceful route. What are you saying, Chrystee?
I just want to make sure that the people who, Jed is a college friend of mine. Jed, I really appreciate you being on. I want to make sure that people, you know, I'm definitely not condoning violence in any way, shape, or form. I do want people to realize and recognize the things that have happened to Black people over time, besides slavery. Like Fanny was talking about, the person that we talked about in the very beginning. When she went in to get a tumor removed, they actually gave her a hysterectomy. They sterilized her, so she wasn't allowed to have kids. You know, there's a story. There's this documentary about these young kids that were Black. They're in their 80s now, but they were practicing radiation on them so that we can now have X-rays and all that kind of stuff. But they practice radiation on them to where now they have holes in the top of their head. These are the things that they were doing to Black people over time. The Tulsa riots, where they were like, "No, y'all got too much money over here. We're going to bomb you guys." And of course, there were other reasons, you know, that they did all that stuff. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to get to a place where things have got to change. And Tim, like he's saying, we have got to vote in November. I'm going to do my due diligence, which is to figure out who is in the local government, so that we can make the change in the smaller, not just the president, but I mean in the local government. Who are the judges and the prosecutors and all that kind of stuff? We're going to make sure that we get those people out and that we get the right people in, because they're going to do us right, because we ain't playing no more. That's all I got to say. Before, I was going to do Black People of the Week real quick. So we always choose a person that is our Black People of the Week, or the Black People Shit person of the week, BPS of the week. So let me just show you guys who that is, because I got another video. And then we're gonna get on out of here. Thanks everybody for joining us. Here is our Black person of the week. So this week, BPS person of the week, it is not playing because I did not push play. And I'm going to find it. Hold on. There we go. There we go. So this week's Black person of the week, or BPS person of the week, is you. All of you who took a stance against injustice and oppression, whether you marched, donated, called your local politician, or just posted about it on your social media page. The fact that you decided to be an active participant in these crucial times instead of just standing there on the sidelines, and it shows what side of history you choose to be on. We have all witnessed in the past movements and marches and protests that have sprung up as a result of police brutality. But this one feels different. It feels like we are at a tipping point. Now, I'm not sure if it's because people are out of work or tired of being quarantined or fed up with the conditions of Black Americans in this country, or all of the above. But at this moment, people of all races are taking a stance, and it's about time. This program tends to focus on the issues and events related to Black life, but this uprising is about all of us. It doesn't matter what race or color you are, regardless if you're Black, brown, or white. If you have joined the fight to demand justice and equality for Black people, you are this week's BPS of the week. All right, so that is who our BPS of the week is. I want to thank all of our hosts that were here. Alex, Alonso, thank you for coming out. Janora McDuffie, Abdul Majid. Alex, do you have any social media places or things that you want us to go to?
Just check out Street TV on YouTube in the next few days. I'm going to be posting at least, 10 different videos that our board witnessed to in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Is it streettv.com?
No, it's actually streettv.net, but on YouTube it's just Street TV.
Okay, Street TV. All right, Janora, do you have anything that you want to?
Yeah, this week I gave a big talk about the intersectionality between the LGBT movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. I'll be posting more on that on my Instagram this week and on Facebook. So if you're not following me, follow me in Facebook, Janora McDuffie, Instagram, J McDeezy. That's JMCDEEZIE.
All right, Abdul, you got anything?
Nope, all my socials are private, so you know what it is.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you like the show today, make sure you like, share, and make sure you come back next Wednesday as we talk about whatever's new that's happening on the news in the Black community. This is Black People Time. All right, y'all. Peace out.
Later.
Hey, everybody.